The Finnish nature center called by the name Haltia is very, very special project here in Finland because of wood. And also what is very important that one very central goal at the beginning of the design process was to find a solution, technical solution that utilizes solar energy and soil energy, geothermal methods of energy solution. So that's why this is very, very special one. The big and very well-known national park is not far away from this building, and together the national park and the building today they create a good combination, a kind of pair of architecture, pure nature and the building itself. So in that sense we are very, very close to the tradition of Finnish modern architecture, because you know our architecture is dominated by this discussion a lot. And our task as architects is to implement our modern technology, our intentions of this day to the life of a human being, and that is the communication between the legacy and the future. Our task as architects should be to create beauty and better and interesting buildings to live, better environments to live, and so. So in that sense, I think architecture should get more attention from the governments, for instance. And let's say, for instance, the policy of architecture should be a part of a political program we all should have and should get an opportunity to enjoy architecture and to live in a good environment. I appreciate very, very highly Sverre Fehn and his architecture. He has been one of the Nordic masters of modern architecture, absolutely. We are not competing. We have a certain competition between us all the time, because of course we are striving to get new projects and commissions and so, but also we are supporting each others very, very strongly. So in that sense we are not in a shadow of another colleague, but we are working together. So I think his meaning, his idea to say this was to say and underline that we are more colleagues. Reima Pietilä wrote 76 the necrologue of Alvar Aalto, saying that the big oak has turned down now, and now sun can shine to us, to the younger architects. And that was also not far away from this. Maybe Sverre Fehn has somehow a little bit same attitude, but mostly I think he was talking about the meaning of the community of architects. Here in Finland, in Sweden, I think the building is a result of cooperation between big number of people, and that is important. So we strive as much as possible to honor also users' comments and stands and points of view, and that is important here in Scandinavia.
It's more like a landscape that we have transformed. It was very interesting. It's a very interesting site. Norway has a lot of special natural spaces, and the project that we were working with is an astonishing space. But it was like kind of transformed bit by bit for like 70 years. And there was actually a lack of kind of transition between man-made and then nature-made. And for that matter, we decided to develop the project as a visit, or it could be like a film, or that where we really understand what is nature-made and what's man-made. And in the beginning, we thought we kind of had the control. And we thought with those big spaces, it would be really easy actually to organize the project. But when you have so much big space or so much kind of possibilities, it's kind of very enormous open sheet, and it became a very interesting process. Instead of being kind of careless of how we develop the project, we become super precise. So for example, we decided to involve a lot of people with different fields of knowledge to kind of find the path what the project should be. And the project is actually made of a quite extended space that it takes almost 20 minutes to walk from one place to another. And also the project we understood was it's in a very special natural space, which is only accessible in summer. So you can actually visit it only 3-4 months a year. And for that matter, you can only build only for 3-4 months a year. So that's very interesting. And it became like something, time became a possibility. Because time, usually today, everything is developed really fast in the contemporary building sector. So we actually managed to use the winter time to reflect and think of new solutions. What I think the best of Nordic culture it relates in a quite clear way to the respect for places and people. And for that matter, I like that you're quite informal in Nordic countries. You can be very direct, I like that. And for that matter also, I think we all relate very much to nature, in the sense that nature is very close to us, because Nordic countries, okay, they're urbanized, but most Nordic people also have like ancestors or relatives that comes from rural areas. So I think in the veins and the DNA of Nordic people, you are always kind of close to nature. Sverre Finn was a very philosophical architect, and I think it's interesting his reflection of inspiration, that everything you do is kind of colored of maybe what someone before you have done. And for that matter, I can understand this picture of the shadow. I would kind of rather describe it for myself as walking through landscapes. And I walk in different kind of landscapes, and of course I get inspired by those landscapes. I look upon architecture as something very interesting that contributes and transforms reality. Once it's built, it becomes a part of a story, and it's a story of itself. And a building a bad building might survive 10-15 years, whether a nice piece of architecture could resist for centuries actually. And for that matter, we invest a lot of thoughts how actually materials in architecture play an important part, and the quality of materials, so how they would age, how would a building standing in a certain place, the climate, how would it transform the building, and those are concerns that are important.
The Tree Hotel is an example of something that we explore in many projects, and that is how architecture is informed and shaped by its multiple contexts. And our idea with this is that if you look closely enough on any context, any situation, there is so much information that you don't have to invent so much. Basically, you can just observe and get a lot of answers from observing reality. And in the example of the Tree Hotel and the Mirror Cube, the idea was, of course, to find a place and produce a place that was secure and like a shelter where you could hide, like you did within small tree cabins as a child, but also to produce a piece of architecture that would be very abstract and standing out. So it's a double situation, and it's using its context, of course. And in this case, the forest is charged with all the ideas that we have about wild nature and the sort of wish to explore and to go further and perhaps also challenge yourself and your own limits. And so we thought this was a really interesting situation to kind of make more clear, a bit of a threshold between society and the uncultivated part of our country.
The interest in experience the wild nature is, of course, to experience something that is untouched, uncultivated. On the other hand, those environments are often harsh climates, and to deal with a harsh climate, we tend to bring our most advanced gears that we have invented, like Kevlar or Gore-Tex or cell phones, to protect or secure ourselves against nature. And this sort of contradiction between experience something that is natural or untouched in relation to our most advanced gears is kind of interesting, and we wanted to merge those two into this building, which ended up in this mirroring cube centered on a tree trunk, 4 times 4 times 4 meters. It's reflecting its surroundings, so it's more or less totally disappears, and it doesn't have any clear typology.
We thought there was an interesting paradox in this, that you wanted to blend in completely, but also bring all the best of the high-tech community that we are all part of. I think that we always look for space for architecture. So if you ask yourself, what can architecture do for society? The answer is sometimes perhaps that it's not really the design or the architecture itself that makes a big change, but it can certainly express and perhaps contribute to the values of society. And to give an example, I think the level of building quality and the sort of ambition and interest that we put as a society into the new buildings we build, especially the ones that we build together for public use, but also perhaps for housing, makes definitely a difference if it's well done, well crafted, and I think it contributes in a way that people can feel that they are part of a society where we not only produce as fast and quick and cheap as we can, but also produce things that are perhaps sound and long-lasting. So the architect has a very difficult task to find that space to produce well-crafted architecture within the means of industrial production that sort of is the only way to produce architecture today.
If you describe architecture as something that is closely linked to political decisions and where the economy is, there you have a lot of potential to change a lot, because The decision to do things or not to do things in relation to building and architecture is crucial to change the society. But the architecture itself, the actual design, doesn't really have the potential to do as much as we might hope.